Alright, take two of 100 Thieves versus Counterlogic Gaming, Week 1, Day 2. We're going to pray that YouTube is on our side today. And alright, so starting off with the Aurelian Soulban, it's really weird to me. I understand that Hui is renowned for it, but champion's in a really, really bad state, and if you can't play around it or invite them to actually just pick a bad champion, seems kind of weird. Zoe, Rise, and Ornn banned away by CLG. This means that Azir is actually on the table. So I think that he is the Tier 1 Elite champion pick that is still going to be available right now, but instead 100 Thieves opting to give Cody's son the Ezreal. So I wonder if Counterlogic Gaming will actually opt for the Kog'Maw. But instead they're hovering the Sejuani. They could just respond with support or ADC here. That's like the safest thing to do. It doesn't really give up too much information. The supports are pretty static right now in the meta. It's not like you're getting any funny picks. The Gangplank is just, yeah, some of his matchups are less brutal than they were before. This is also a red side Gangplank, so it's inherently a little bit more vulnerable, and to be blind picking it does definitely take some balls. Especially paired with that Sejuani. Sejuani is probably not going to be able to offer that much assistance on the right-hand side. So this, I think, is tying into Counterlogic Gaming probably committing to a heavy bottom side comp. Because traditionally, a red side jungler is going to have a little bit more usage going top lane. But when you pair Sejuani and Gangplank, obviously there's not a lot of strength inside of that combo, right? At least not until like both of them have 6 or something. And even then, you know, it's definitely able to be played around by the enemy top laner. So what this is basically tying in for is you have the... Oh, let me turn on Epic Pen. I don't have Epic Pen on right now. Give me a second. Okay. So what this is basically saying is that there's not a lot of synergy right here. Okay. But Gangplank has the ultimate, which is able to help out bottom lane. So, I mean, I guess this is just giving us a little bit of intel that they plan to have some sort of dominance come from bottom lane and then play around that. Otherwise, picking these two champions that early on is just kind of weird because you just give up such an edge to the opponents. Anyways, Malzahar picked. It gets met with a... No, not like that. Please, YouTube, not today. Malzahar ends up getting picked, gets met with a counter via the Zilean. Zilean, one of the traditional counters to Malz, because you can ult the target that Malzahar is locking down, and then it's basically like Malzahar is self-ulting himself. And then, obviously, the Gnar comes out as the traditional go-to Gangplank counter. Again, I said this in recent VOD reviews as well, that Gnar he's not as strong as he was in, like, Season 7 against Gangplank, but yeah, he's still pretty brutal. And that's mostly just because of the changes with the runes and stuff. So, very curious to actually see what are the jungler, what the jungler is going to be for 100 Thieves, because that's going to dictate a lot inside of this game. Malzahar is basically able to hold his own in the matchup against Zilean. It's a pretty neutral lane, and you can see that junglers are actually being pinched away. Interestingly enough, Evelynn being banned away by CLG, and that's just something that doesn't make a lot of sense, at least not to me personally. When you look at 100 Thieves team composition, if they end up picking an Evelynn here, you kind of want them to have an Eve, because Gangplank is able to play around an Evelynn fairly well up in top lane. It's very difficult until Malzahar has 6 to really coordinate anything against the Zilean in mid lane. Later on into the game, these 3 champions, they just fare so well against Eve, just in general. And if they already have intentions to just play a power comp, you know, with the main strength coming out of primarily the AD carry and then being bolstered by the power of Gangplank in the later stages of the game, Evelynn doesn't really strike me as a champion that you should actually have to be afraid of. So I'm not entirely sure on the Evelynn ban. The Zac is acceptable, but the Eve ban seems very out there for me. We'll see what ends up happening. And remember, CLG actually has counter pick. Kog'Maw banned away. This actually puts CLG on Caitlyn. I don't think that they needed to go Caitlyn. They could have actually probably reserved. They could have reserved counterpick to wait to see all of the comps come out, and then maybe there's a chance where you actually just like. Tristana and Cog being banned away, Kallista's banned away. The ADCs are really pinched. Ezreal's already there. I mean, Caitlyn is going to be one of those like go-to lane domination ADCs, and obviously you can open up the map really, really fast. You can get Gangplank out of a rough spot like that. I don't think it's absolutely necessary to pick the ADC right there, though. Especially because 100 Thieves can't actually steal away the ADC. But it does look like they just want to go for a counterpick support. And they just wanted to see how 100 Thieves would actually develop the rest of their remaining champion picks. Jarvan locked in, as well as Braum. And now CLG actually hovering Bard and going into Janna. So Lane Kingdom, they're gonna attempt to have a lot of power coming out of that bottom lane, try to open up the map fast, get Darshan out of the rough matchup, and then just go. They have a scaling insurance policy inside of the Gangplank Zillion to neutralize the Malzahar. And realistically, if you look at these team compositions, when you go super late game, if Malzahar falls when he has his 3 items, when he has the Rylai's, the Liandry's, the Morellonomicon, etc., it becomes extremely difficult for these champions to handle Caitlyn if any one of these champions still remain to help her. If any one of these 3 champions remain, Caitlyn and one of them can basically 2v3, depending on how strong Kate is and if they can actually manage to get Caitlyn really far ahead. So Ezreal is a pretty integral part to this team comp, as well as Malzahar. Malzahar is kind of the queen in this team comp because Malz is just able to do so much, and he's able to offer so much disruption, and it just offers Cody Sun like free barrage inside of team fights and whatnot. Obviously, the Gnar should be able to have his way up in top lane. Now, again, fortunately, 400 Thieves, Darshan is on red side Gangplank. It's much easier to coordinate ganks there. It's also pretty easy for you now to play on the left-hand side, especially given the fact that Reignover is not going to like his red-hand side jungle. So when like you're thinking about the map and stuff and Reignover's red side jungle, you know, he doesn't really like this because the incentive to actually path intentionally on this side, you don't have a lot of solo herald. You know, that's not a real choice that you can make. Very, very difficult to help out Gangplank in the top half. And obviously, you want to be committing a lot of focus down into bottom. So naturally, as long as Meteos, Someday, and Ryu are going to be playing well, Ryu should actually be able to play to the left-hand side of the lane, and then Meteos should actually be able to cause a lot of disruption on the left-hand side and apply a lot of pressure to Darshan. And as long as Cody Sun and Aphromoo can hold their own on bottom, you know, for the first like 12, 13 minutes or something like that, there's a lot of chaos that could actually be caused on the top-hand side of the map just looking at these team compositions. Meteos can't just go like counter jungle centric and try to keep Reignover, you know, from helping his lanes. The onus is actually on Meteos to cause disruption via either ganks or pranks. Counter jungling alone is just not enough. And then even if 6A and Biofrost do manage to get advantages, if Someday can put Darshan in the grave, or if they can just put Gangplank in the grave, it really disrupts the mid-game team fights, because even if Caitlyn is ahead at that point with Hui, you have to just be completely aware of your own positioning inside of team fights against the J4, against the Malzahar. Things get really tricky because your Gangplank is going to be so stunted in the game, and it's going to take him so much longer to wake up. So we can just go into the game now, and we can pray that YouTube does not... okay, you know what, YouTube? You're bombing your jungle, just prank my lane. That's right, Twitch chat. Alright. One last look at the champion picks. I like the Snow Day Malzahar. The Snow Day Malzahar is really, you know, he's good. He's good. This is actually, who you should probably recall. Yeah, okay. That's too much damage to take early on. So these type of situations, they actually benefit Cody Sun. a lot. I don't know why CLG. This is just really foolish by CLG to handshake on, because if Cody's son even gets a klepto proc, it just becomes so valuable. There's absolutely no reason to go for these little tit for tat trades, not when someone has kleptomancy. It's just completely stupid. It doesn't matter if like the HP value ends up being okay, because just look at that. Ezreal's already getting so much value out of klepto. Wow, Stixay is getting completely gutted. This isn't a trade that they should be wanting to take, but, you know, apparently Meteos is cosplaying Saint Vicious, so ends up working out. Now Meteos is, it's not the end of the world. Jarvan is definitely able to clear his jungle by himself. And other junglers, this could be a lot worse. Fortunately, 400 Thieves, Cody's son did get quite a lot of damage off. He got some pretty good klepto procs. So Jarvan's going to be a little bit behind. He's going red into blue, and I don't know what he's going to do after that. Maybe he's just going to go and get Scuttle Crab, or maybe he's going to go for a ward or something. I don't really understand. Okay, he's just going to go to Wolves. Seems like a really weird route. If your intention isn't to... So I've said this about some of the paths that he's done in the other game, right? If your intention is to go boom, 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 and then what? You're not going to come mid, there's no gank. You're not going to go top, you're basically going to be too low, and then also the point that you could arrive, Darshan is just going to be stronger than what you would normally expect because you're naturally behind in the jungle because of the way that the opening occurred. So you're not going to go boom, 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 boom. You're never going to go boom, boom, boom. That just doesn't make any sense. You're never going to do this. Okay, you're never going to do this. I mean, that just doesn't make any sense either. I mean, this is probably his intention. But it just doesn't do anything. I don't understand why you wouldn't just go 1-2, scuttle, back, recall, path here, boom, and boom, boom. Because at this point, with the way that bottom lane currently is, like, look at this, right? You can see how the level 1 occurred, and you can already know that CLG is going to be shoving into 100 Thieves. There's absolutely no universe where Rainover can make anything happen. Someday is not going to be in any danger in top lane. Darshan can't do anything to him. Mid lane is basically stalemate, right? So Meteos isn't under any obligation to do anything. He should already concede the fact that he can't do anything until level 4, and he doesn't want to get to level 4 and then stunt his presence on the map by recalling. So it's a little bit strange to me. He ends up recalling immediately after Wolves, but he could have done a different route where he could have just prolonged the efficiency on his blue. He ends up also just getting a jungle item, not even like a longsword or something. So I guess what this means is that he's trying to go for just a green smite. Malzahar is able to get some intel in on the Sejuani. And now Meteos is coming down into bottom lane. They're actually going to pick up a kill onto Biofrost. So let's just take a look at this for a second. Okay. So they haven't seen Meteos for a while, and you can see that Rainover isn't really getting any intel. He's just sort of power farming throughout his jungle. He ends up getting spotted out by Ryu, who hits the Scryer plant. You see Darshan is just basically going about his own business up in top lane. And they haven't seen Meteos for a while, so pay attention to the bottom half of the map, and look at this ward and how it fades and he comes over the wall. Now, perhaps this is actually communicated, that Afro and Cody tell them exactly when they place this ward, and then, you know, they have the timer in the top right-hand corner, and they're like, okay, this ward dies at 4:07, right? And so maybe this is a part of his route here to come over and then path in. If that ends up being the case, then this is pretty okay. And here's the thing, right? So let's talk about a prank situation. Let's say, hypothetically, that this ward actually was living a little bit longer and there was no comms, or there was no communication. If Meteos actually just came through here, obviously we can see that there's a ward right here, so CLG would know that he's here. Meteos comes here and just paths like this, and then these guys back all the way up, and then this wave comes up. Well, this wave is doomed. So what ends up happening is 6A and Biofrost get zoned off of a wave, and it provides a ton of pressure relief to Cody's son and Afro. And as long as Meteos just stays around, even though he's not fighting, not blowing summoners, they can't actually get onto Bio or 6A, it would end up providing to be a very useful presence for Cody's son and Afro. And I know that's not the state in this game, but it's just something to talk about. It also let them transition out pretty easy, because they know exactly where Rainover is, they know exactly where you can go for the next couple of minutes, and then it lets just Meteos transition out. But unfortunately, for CLG. 100 Thieves obviously get a lot better of a deal going on there as they pick up the kill onto Bio. And this is something that CLG can't afford to have happen. Their bottom lane is their most important lane, by far. By far, it's their most important lane. So just look at this pathing. Obviously, I mean, this looks really coordinated. It looks like, 100 Thieves was telling him exactly when that ward was going to expire. And so for Caitlyn to fall behind, you can still see that she's up quite a bit in CS, but there's a wave in front of Ezreal's turret, so he's going to get a little bit more, but still 6A definitely ahead in the CS department, but that kill is really, really, really problematic. You can see Someday not even really able to get too much turret damage done onto Darshan. And this bottom lane is basically everything. So with Gangplank having level 6 now, we have to just pay attention to what's going to happen in bottom. Giant Wave actually being shoved in by Ezreal and Braum. So it doesn't look like there's going to be any sparks that can fly right now, not at least until the lane can be altered a little bit. And then Drainover's just continuing to farm up. Meteos coming in, trying to get presence. And again, he can't just keep getting presence, and he can't just keep finding Sejuani and stuff. He has to be disruptive. You can see that Meteos is almost level 6. Drainover is already level 6. He's going to get level 6, though, after clearing this red. One of the things they have to be cautious about, though, is not letting this game just go into a stalemate. And I like what they're doing right now. They know that they had the priority wards on the right-hand side jungle. They were able to see everything that Drainover was just doing. They identified the blue handoff. They pick up an Infernal Drake. It's a really, really big victory. They have basically almost every member on their team is able to make use of this, with the exception of Braum. So this is just pretty fantastic. Nara loves it. Ezreal, Malzahar, Jarvan. So this is a pretty high value Infernal Drake. Not every single team composition that you get is going to be able to make use of it as much as this 100 Thieves team comp is. So right now they're showing the gold difference, and you can see that bottom lane, Caitlyn is behind pretty fair bit. She's about 600 gold. And we're beginning to reach the part where Darshan is going to start to get under a lot of pressure, and you can see that 6A and Bio are pretty hard pressed to try to get the turret down. And when you just keep watching the minimap, you see all of this vision. Just look at this Christmas tree, right, on the right-hand side, but they're not able to make anything happen. They have the teleport up from Hui. They need something to come in from Drainover. The Gangplank ultimate is up. They have to coordinate something, but the problem is that Someday is about to have teleport too. Ryu has the teleport available as well. It is just so difficult to make something happen down in this bottom lane, after Caitlyn lost her tempo. And here even, they're bringing the fight to CLG. This just can't happen. This is sort of just like the TSM Team Liquid thing. To the average viewer, to the average spectator, you're seeing 2 kills. You're seeing, 1K gold lead. You're seeing, relatively even CS across the board. No, bullshit. CLG is so far behind right now, just due to the nature of how these team compositions operate and what they need to be doing in the mid-game, mid to late game transition, what they needed to have happen. The fact that Caitlyn fell as far behind as she did, it's almost like Lucian top lane dying or like Lucian mid lane dying. It's almost impossible to salvage. You're going to have a Caitlyn who is completely stunted in the mid game, not able to offer up any sort of damage. You're going to have a Zilean that doesn't have a true carry to really aid. They're going to end up stagnating in the mid game, playing like this stalemate war, and then they're going to have to scale up to like 2-3 items and then look to take team fights. And then there's a lot of pressure on Drainover to come up with really big ultimates, because Stixxay and Darshan are not going to be these powerhouses that just rain down, bullets onto the opposing team. So Ryu is going to be really problematic, because with Stixxay already being behind and with Hui not really having an advantage, in fact, he's behind as well, and the Infernal Drake that 100 Thieves has, you don't have the luxury of being able to go into that Quicksilver Sash as early as you maybe could have if your team composition was ahead. So 100 Thieves is just they're getting these micro advantages that you can't really see just by like looking at the game, but it's happening. And you know the effects of these things are going to really be felt in like 5 minutes from now. And with the next dragon of the game being a mountain, this is like tying in perfectly for 100 Thieves to just be able to pick up a Baron very, very quickly. Because once that Malzahar has that Leandries, and I mean, if he has a Mountain Drake with the Voidlings and stuff, and all you need to do basically is take down one member on CLG, and then you can even start using Baron baits. Reignover not really doing too much. I mean, he's getting vision, but he can't just do that. Not when his team just fell behind. Now, if Stixxay and Biofrost were ahead, if they managed to have kills, get a lot of turret pressure, that would be fine. But that wasn't what was going on. They needed to start making more aggressive plays. They needed to synergize better. You know, Hui shoving in lanes, rotating with Reignover, investing more into control wards, clearing out the right-hand side river vision. And then they need to make things happen for that Caitlyn. Because it doesn't even matter now if CLG does get First Blood turret in that bottom lane. It's completely irrelevant because there's just too many advantages that have been gained elsewhere. And you can see that Darshan's actually doing a pretty good job at keeping up. Some days actually not doing as well as he probably should. And this is, again, it's just sort of a change in the dynamic of the Gnar Gangplank lane. It's not as brutal as it once was. And it's actually also very surprising that Meteos wasn't able to make some more things happen up in top lane. But nonetheless, I mean, the advantages that were given to bottom lane was pretty big. I mean, it's bigger than top lane. We talked about how early on Ryu, Meteos, and Someday should have been able to coordinate stuff happening up in top lane, but then with that initial gank that happened, the capturing of Infernal Drake, they don't need to invest into that. They just need to make sure they prevent Stixxay from ever getting back in. So Mountain Drake picked up. The next dragon's going to spawn as soon as Baron spawns. So these are basically perfect because now it means that it looks like another mountain is coming up. So if they capture another Mountain Drake at 20 minutes and 30 seconds or so, right? They invest into capturing it. Maybe there's a little bit of a standoff. They capture it. It's 21 minutes. By the time they get to Baron, they clear out vision. They're ready for Baron. It's 22. They have double Mountain Drake. It's so ridiculous, and it's so difficult to play against. CLG just falling behind more and more. And you can see Someday probably going to be able to get the turret within the next 3 waves or so. Perfect RNG Drakes, actually, yes, for 100 Thieves. And you can see there's really, I mean, there's nitty-gritty stuff to talk about, but it ultimately ends up just being fruitless in the face of the game. The game at this stage is honestly pretty boring. Okay, they're going to pick up a kill. Okay, never mind. They didn't pick up a kill onto Ryu. The game at this stage is kind of boring when you just acknowledge that CLG is... They're basically in the grave. The dirt just isn't... It's not put on top yet. Like, all that 100 Thieves has to do is shovel the dirt in. The fact that CLG even lost the First Blood turret, I mean, that's just the icing on the cake for 100 Thieves. So this is just, you know, they're getting completely eviscerated. In fact, Cody-san and Aphromu look like they're probably even going to be able to capture the bottom tier 1 before. Reignover's just not doing anything. So the main takeaway so far for me this game is that CLG invested into a strategy. They were not able to pull it off. Reignover and Co. do not seem like they're operating in harmony enough. And then obviously, yeah, that bottom lane stuff that happened so early on, I mean, that was catastrophic. But it didn't look like they were, you know, Hui and Reignover weren't ever really working as a pair in order to create opportunities. Reignover didn't seem to identify that, you know, you can power farm and just get vision for your team as long as the vision that you're getting for the team is on the right hand side, which, you know, at some points it was. But it came in at a time where his team was just so far behind. And so you really have to question some of the decisions that he was making in like post 3 minutes, especially with the advantages that he got early on. He got the blue, even though Stixay took a little bit of a beating. And then he didn't really transition out of that very well. He should have identified and asked himself, what does Meteos need to do in order to aid his team? What does my team just need not to happen in order to win? And then he should have played to that. You can see Darshan in bottom lane, and this is beginning to look like the Fnatic versus H2K thing, where CLG just can't stabilize. They seem all over the place. I was watching what VOD review game was it yesterday? It was like Clutch Gaming versus Solo Queue or versus Dynamic Queue. I can't even remember. It was like Clutch playing Flex Queue or something. This is like 100 Thieves playing Flex Queue. Really, really sad to see. And you have to wonder, like, how much is attributed to the loss of Aframu. You know, it's really bizarre because these type of team compositions where there's like multi-lane synergy going on, like the Gangplank, and you have the teleport in mid on Zillion, and you're trying to just ramp up Stixay. Like, why is nothing happening? Why is nothing coming from it? It almost looked like they were clueless and they didn't know what to do as soon as 6A fell behind. And that's a really big problem if you don't know how to play from behind. At this point, Nar shoves in bottom. I mean, all that they actually have to do here is you shove in bottom like this, you look to make a play in mid lane, and then even if you don't make a play in mid lane, alright, so let's just talk about something. So you shove in bottom, and then you have Nar come up. You have 5 people in mid. You shove in mid to the tier 1 turret. You get the vision around here. You go to the Baron, and then maybe you fake a Baron. Maybe they just say to you, hey, you know what? You can't get it because we have Gangplank ultimate. Well, okay. You fight to get their Gangplank ultimate out of them. You have double Mountain Drake. You have Voidlings. You have a very tanky J4. You have a tanky Someday, etc. Maybe you try to secure vision so that you can set up a flank teleport ward for Someday. And then, you know, if they're stalemating you right here, you might even be able to just say, okay, well, we're going to give that up in exchange for putting one person top and then threatening this turret, and then just look to trade pawns. You know, you trade this for this or something like that. And that would be completely fine, given the state of the game and the type of dragons that you have. And then you could actually just wait for the 3rd turret. And I think it would be a pretty fine decision. But I mean, this game is basically turning out exactly how I thought that it would turn out. It would just look like a superior team, like pound for pound, just taking down a team. I think that it's way too early on in the season. I don't know exactly how long CLG have been like scrimming together with this new roster. I don't know, you know, how familiar they are with the current meta and everything like that. So I think it's going to take a lot more time. You can see CLG is actually panicking a little bit. They end up actually picking up a kill onto Aframu, though. And Someday is getting a lot of value, though, down in bottom lane. And you can see that even though they win the fight, the damage threat that they have just isn't enough. Like, Stixay and co just are not far enough ahead the way that they wanted to be ahead. CLG has a team composition that ideally, even though they have that scaling component, Gangplank up in top lane, they would like to be a couple K ahead. They would like to be ahead on tempo. They would not like to be under the threat of Gnar. They would like to be forcing Gnar off of his ability to split push, you know? But they just don't have that kind of that strength in this game, and so it ends up costing them. And here comes that Mountain Drake. It's going to do a lot of work, and this is what they can do. They can attack the blue trinkets, 100 Thieves. You look at that team fighting. 6A trying to do what he could, but not really much to be gained, and all they have to do now is rinse, wash, repeat. And, you know, you look at the scoreboard and you see like a 4.2k gold lead. Remember the Infernal Drake. Infernal Drake is adding a lot there. Yes, Gangplank is more gold efficient, but don't forget that Malzahar is extremely... Malzahar doesn't slow down. Malzahar is one of the few champions in the game that just does not slow down. Every time I talk about this, I don't know if anyone ever... Okay, well, someday... Okay, well, he's not taking shit from anyone except for Hui, apparently. He ends up going down there, but I mean, the trade is just so worthwhile in the end. He pulled away so much attention, was able to even go 1-for-1. Yes, technically the gold is advantageous for CLG, but again, a tempo team does not want to be taking trades. I don't like the death cap. I don't like the death cap only just because I understand it. It ties into being able to lock down Zilean and just burst him in one shot. It does also make the threat onto like Kate and co a lot scarier, but I just feel like the Rylai's are so valuable for the slows, especially coupled with that Ezreal, coupled with the Gnar. CLG, I mean, they're trying to hang on with these team fighting and things. And now this is actually the stage of the game where, you know, 100 Thieves, even in the previous VOD review, they begin to break down. It's like where this advanced requirement of macro, or advanced understanding of macro, begins to become required in order to close out. And, you know, this is week 1, day 2, so what can you really expect? Malzahar is a god in these situations, by the way. This is basically Malzahar's wet dream. Anytime he can kite backwards, he is king kite. And there's that damage that just comes out, gets the Zilean out. Someday just does not give a... Wow, okay, well, I was about to be demonetized. You know, scam stars, I gotta keep that business running. And that's gonna be the end of the game. They just get clean aced. They're not really in a position to take this team fight. I think they really overestimated their position inside of the game. Okay, Zilean's ult is on a really, really gross short cooldown. Okay, and the minions and the turret. All right, you know what? Don't worry, Hui. I know that feeling all too well, trying to walk between turrets. So, unfortunately for you, this is not the snow map. We can just take a look at this team fight one more time. So, you have to really wonder, like, what are they thinking? Because even if they can hold 100 Thieves at bay, they can't ever get the Baron. There is never a universe they get the Baron. So what ends up happening is a stalemate occurs, and then someday, you know, even if they don't want to take this team fight or something for some unholy reason, someone can just go like this and be like, okay. And then this team is going to go la-di-da-di-da, and then this team's going to go la-di-da-di-da, and then they're going to get this, and then this team's going to go la-di-da-di-da and meet them here, and this team's going to back out through the red side jungle, clear out all the vision, and then rinse, wash, repeat, and then, you know, CLG's behind. So... this is just a really ugly team fight. Don't know what CLG is doing. I think that they're just panicking. They're in desperation mode because, you know, it feels really, really bad when you're an accelerating base team comp and you can't really do anything. Now, with the Baron, unless 100 Thieves goes full SKT, they should be able to close out the game. It's going to be a matter of time. I like how they're operating with a 1-4-0 just to get that top tier 2 turret. Usually that's a turret. It's a luxury turret. You only get it with the Baron buff available. I like how they're neglecting Cloud Drake. I would have liked to have actually just seen like maybe one person run down really quick and pick it up just to get that mountain or that Elder Drake to be spawning. Normally you will hear me say, like, just don't even get it because you don't want the Elder to spawn because it's the only hope the enemy team has. But honestly, when you are in such a driver's seat like this, like, it is almost preposterous to assume that CLG should ever be able to get a footing back in this game for the foreseeable future. They need multiple items, which is going to take longer than it would take for Elder Dragon to spawn. So I think it would be completely acceptable to have just like taken that off the map really quick. They end up picking themselves up 2 turrets. I would like to just see defensive itemization come out from everyone right now by 100 Thieves. Get the Guardian Angel on Meteos. Get the Guardian Angel on Gnar. It opens up a lot of dive plays. You can tank turrets for days. And, you know, you just close out the game that way. So, alright, never mind. We're just going to close out the game by, you know, diving on top of them with the 12k gold lead. I mean, that's fine. It ends up being okay as well. And I love Malzahar so much. He's one of my favorite champions. Love him so much. Please don't nerf him again. And it looks like that is going to be the end of the game. We did see a similar thing occur, though, where 100 Thieves did stall a little bit at the same point that they stalled yesterday in the game. CLG continues to look like a chicken with its head cut off a little bit. And, hopefully they'll be able to bring it together. And that's all for this VOD review. So we're going to go into the next one now.